Drug culture has been depicted on our screens for over 100 years, having found itself at the center point of many memorable films and television shows. Throughout these tales, we have experienced euphoria, incredible wealth, gruesome violence, and the downfalls of some great characters. In hindsight, these stories have become an actual reflection of the different eras and perspectives of the drug trade at a societal level. Let's take a trip in the Court of Source. Films based on the drug trade have been around so long that the first one dates all the way back to the silent era in 1894. It was called Chinese Opium Den by Thomas Edison. The silent era focused heavily on opium as well as cocaine. During this period, drugs were generally well received on screen and didn't suffer from many negative connotations. A good example of this is the 1916 film Mystery of the Leaping Fish, which featured a detective, played by Douglas Fairbanks, who uses cocaine to assist in battling Chinese drug smugglers. The lax attitude towards drugs would change when the production code era rolled around in the 1930s. The first iteration of the Motion Picture Association of America created clear guidelines for what could and could not appear in films that were released to the public. They were created in response to a number of scandals in Hollywood as an attempt to clean up their image and had religious undertones intent on promoting positive morality. Reefer Madness is a famous example of how far things went at the time, portraying the consumption of marijuana as a means to going crazy and committing horrendous acts like murder, rape, and suicide. By the 1960s, the production code had begun its eventual decline, tracking side by side with the hippie culture of the era. Films like Easy Rider, Woodstock, The French Connection, and many more would approach storytelling with a neutral stance. LSD and marijuana became the drugs of choice, strongly influenced by the free spirit anti-war movement. This laxed attitude would remain until the 1980s when Ronald Reagan would ramp up the war on drugs.
Drugs are menacing our society. They're threatening our values and undercutting our institutions. They're killing our children.
This era brought some of the most renowned films depicting drugs on screen. One of the greatest is Scarface, which details Tony Montana's rise from nothing to an overwhelmingly powerful drug lord. Here we see the effects of gluttonous wealth earned from the South American cocaine trade, which is a real-life reflection of the kinds of cartels that the drug war was intended to eradicate. Scarface would become incredibly influential as the years passed, arguably creating the archetype for the rise and fall cartel story, which would be mirrored in many films well into the 21st century. It's important to keep in mind that most of the films during this time viewed drugs negatively in tandem with the Republican administrations. Films like Altered States and Drugstore Cowboy would continue the streak of presenting drugs in a negative manner, that is, until the Clinton administration rolled around in the 90s. Alongside Generation X, this era would bring an easy attitude towards drugs, which could be considered the modern era of drug cinema. From the beginning of this time until current day, we've seen a whole spectrum of different films that have depicted drugs as both negative and positive. There are the cartel rise and fall films like Blow and American Gangster, as well as the drug addict downers like Trainspotting and Requiem for a Dream. We've also seen the endless comedy stoner films like Half-Baked, Pineapple Express, How High, the list goes on. Supported by the impending legalization of marijuana and many other societal concerns, it may be fair to say we finally entered an era where drugs will be continuously viewed as a neutral force on screen. With the rise of contemporary television as a means of high-quality storytelling, we've also had the opportunity to see some great shows come out focused on the drug trade. Breaking Bad is a prime example of this, as well as Narcos, the real-life story of Pablo Escobar and his Colombian drug empire. And while we're on the topic, the economics of the cartel system throughout history has had a massive effect on how drug lords have been portrayed on screen. I'd highly recommend checking out Real Life Lore's video detailing the underground economics and the way money worked for one of history's most notorious drug lords, Pablo Escobar. Real Life Lore is a great channel and a close friend of the Court of Source. If you haven't subscribed to his channel yet, then you should probably think about changing that. Thanks again for watching, and as always, we'll see you in court.